guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you the best labor and delivery tips. Now, coming right off the top, I'm just gonna say, obviously these are a little subjective. I am basing these tips off of what I experienced, some things that I sort of wish I would have known, but also tips that were given to me by my doula and my aunt, who is a nurse and lactation consultant, and things just that really worked for me as I was giving birth to my son in a hospital. I had a natural birth, I had a vaginal birth, I had an epidural, but it wore off. So I kind of, it was a semi-natural birth. These tips were definitely a lifesaver in certain areas, and so I wanted to share them with you. Let's jump into it. First tip, and probably the thing I would recommend the absolute most to new moms or to any mom who perhaps didn't do this before, is have a birth plan. Have a birth plan. And now, I thought when I was pregnant that a birth plan was just deciding between having a hospital birth and having a home birth. Like, well, what else do you need to plan? I'm either gonna have my baby at home in a bathtub, or I'm gonna have my baby at the hospital. But there's actually so much more that goes into a birth plan. For example, do you want certain vaccinations the day your baby's born? Do you want to hold off on those vaccinations? Want your baby bathed right after they're born? Do you want to do skin to skin? Who do you want in your labor and delivery room? There's just so much that I never thought of. Now, the reason I made a birth plan was because I had a doula who's the one who let me know about a birth plan and why it was so important to write all those things down. During labor at the hospital, you might not be able to make certain decisions that you otherwise would have a very strong opinion on. And so it's important to write those things down. That way your nurses and your doctors know how you feel on certain things and know how you want certain things to go. I actually even had a nurse at the hospital once we got there ask if I had a birth plan so that they could read it over before the show really got to move on, because obviously once you've progressed in labor, once you're having really strong contractions, everyone is on board and there are a lot of things going on at a lot of different times. And so I thought it was really nice that my nurse wanted to read through that birth plan and keep it out so other nurses could read through it before we got to the home stretch of having my baby. So yes, make yourself a birth plan. You can Google birth plan templates and they'll come up with the things that you can include, things that your doctor or nurses may ask of you. And if you're still kind of unsure, ask your doctor and they may actually have a birth plan template that sort of fits with their hospital. Maybe a really nice place for you to start in writing down everything that you prefer for your birthing experience. So I sort of mentioned this, but one of the best tips that I got was to decide who I wanted in the labor and delivery room before the big day. So to really decide if I wanted just my husband in the room, if I wanted my husband and my mom. Also, a big tip, ask your doctor how many people are actually even allowed in the room, because there are certain hospitals that will have a cap on how many people are allowed in the room, depending on how big labor and delivery suites are. So just depending on whether or not your doctor wants extra people in the room while you're giving birth. It's just a good thing to know. That way you can start to decide who you want there for that experience. Now, my doctor was so incredibly sweet, and I even had nurses the day of say the same thing to me, but she had said to me, listen, we have a policy of you can have as many people as you want in the room, as many people as you're comfortable with, but if you want me to say to you that you are only allowed to have 3 people in the room, then I can do that and I can enforce that. And ultimately what she's saying is that it's up to you, and you let me know how many people you want in the room, and then I can be the bad guy and, tell people that they can't come in or not. And so I thought that was really sweet, because it's such an emotionally filled, emotionally charged time. And if you have certain people that really want to be in the room with you, but that you don't feel comfortable having in the room with you, it can be really hard for you to say no, mom. But what's really nice is a lot of doctors and nurses will be the bad guy for you and will say unfortunately we can only have one person in the room, and that person is going to be, the partner. So we'll see you at the end of it. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. And if you fall into that category of there are a lot of people who want to be in the room and you would rather it just be you and your partner, then definitely let your doctor know, or let the nurses when you first get into your hospital room know, and they can be the bad guy for you. Okay, the next tip is once you've had your baby and you get transferred into your recovery room, ask for a hospital grade pump. A lot of hospitals will let you use their hospital grade breast pump pump while you're in recovery. And I think that that's so amazing. My aunt, who is a lactation consultant and a nurse, told me that, and I got transferred into my recovery room. We used one, and I just remember it was so strong. It was such a strong pump, and it made me feel so good knowing that I had such a strong pump with me, especially because in comparison to the pump that I had at home, it was like night and day. It was such a great pump. I would say you could either ask your doctor beforehand if you want to know if they allow you to use their pumps for free while you're staying at the hospital, or when you get transferred into recovery, you can ask your attending nurses. Next tip is to make sure to ask if you can take anything home from your recovery room. So most hospitals will send you home with a bunch of stuff, and like side tip, the nicer you can be to your nurses, the more stuff they'll send you home with. My nurses were so absolutely sweet, and I know that it's a really hard time for mamas. It's a lot of stress. We're up practically the entire night. We're not sleeping, but we're also trying to recover from our labor and delivery while at the same time getting to know this new baby and getting to know breastfeeding with this new baby. It can be hard to have patience and to be nice to anybody, but if there's going to be anybody that you're nice to, it's the nurses. Be nice to the nurses and ask them if there's anything that you can take home from the hospital, and if there's any extras of anything you can take home from the hospital. My nurse sent me home with some diapers for the baby, which was so nice. Sent me home with some extra cans of Dermoplast, which was a lifesaver, extra big pads, extra postpartum underwear. And so definitely make sure you ask, because it'll save you on some like late night early trips to CVS or Duane Reade. My next tip is a little quick one. If you are someone who likes music in your hospital room, or have developed a hospital plan to like give birth to like soothing sounds, make sure you pack a speaker. That was something that I almost forgot. Make sure you pack a little portable speaker. Make sure that it's charged. Make sure that it's compatible with your phone or your laptop. If you'd rather watch TV shows while you're waiting for baby to be born, or you'd rather watch movies while you're recovering, then definitely make sure to bring your laptop. Those are all things you can jot down on your packing list. Super easy, really quick. My next tip actually has to do with filming the birth. If you are a YouTuber like me, or if you're not a YouTuber and you just want to film the birth to have that memory for you and your family, then my advice is to ask the hospital beforehand if you're allowed to film, because the worst thing would be to show up on the day that you're giving birth, to set up your camera, and to find out that you're actually not allowed to film. That would be so sad. Ask your hospital. A lot of hospitals do allow filming. And then my next tip is, once you're in your hospital room, set everything up. Set up your camera on a tripod in like the corner of the room or somewhere nearby, out of everyone's way, but so that it's set up and that you don't have to be worrying about filming it while you're having contractions and giving birth to your baby. A big tip too for your spouse, for your partner, or whoever's there with you while you're giving birth, because they'll probably also be really overwhelmed with emotions and with what's going on, everything happening, and you don't want to be worrying about them filming. They don't want to be worried about filming. So what we did was we set up my camera on the opposite side of the room. It got some footage, and my husband wasn't worrying about filming. I wasn't worried about him filming. Like, we could just enjoy the moment. Last tip. If you buy a super cute hospital gown, or super cute like hospital gown matching pillowcase situation, don't wear them when you give birth. I would say maybe 9 times out of 10, they would get really sweaty, maybe a little bloody, like just a little bit gross. Save them until after you give birth. After you give birth, the baby is here. You can put on your beautiful gown and the beautiful pillowcase and take a picture. Just do yourself a favor and save those like gorgeous garments for after you give birth. All right guys, those are all my best labor and delivery tips. If you have any really great labor and delivery tips that you want to share, definitely leave them down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.